This was not a movie.
This was not a movie. You land on a golf course, do you yell "for" as you come down?
Ford.
Few stars embody American cinema quite like Harrison Ford. For more than half a century, he's flown between galaxies, raced across deserts, and stared down villains with that signature mix of grit and warmth. Yet beneath the swagger lies a craftsman, an actor who treats every role, whether it's a blockbuster hero or a quiet drama, with the same respect for story and truth. Now, at 83 years old, Ford has finally looked back, not at the trophies or ticket sales, but at the films that defined him personally. Some are his own, others inspired him long before Hollywood came calling. Together, they trace the evolution of a man who went from carpenter to cultural legend, guided always by curiosity, humility, and a love for adventure.
You can always figure out the truth. Always.
These 6 choices reveal what matters most to Ford: integrity, endurance, and a touch of mischief. They're films that test courage, celebrate resilience, and occasionally let him throw a punch while saying something unforgettable. Number 6, Air Force One, 1997.
Rob, sind Sie noch da?
Ja, Sir.
Ich habe ein kleines Problem hier. Mein Seitenruder klemmt.
By the late 1990s, Harrison Ford had already saved the world more than once, but Air Force One let him do it from the cockpit. As U.S. President James Marshall, he became the leader every audience wished they had: brave, decisive, and unshakably human. When a band of terrorists hijacks the presidential jet, Ford's Marshal doesn't negotiate. He fights back. And with one line shouted through gritted teeth, "Get off my plane," he cemented another entry in the dictionary of great movie moments. In a 2023 People interview, Ford admitted that the line still follows him everywhere. "Because I fly," he laughed. "I probably say way more than I need to. Get off my plane." For a licensed pilot who spends his free time in the sky, the joke carries extra meaning. It's not just a catchphrase, it's part of who he is. He even recalled that President Bill Clinton once called him the kick-ass president. Ford grinned and said, "I'll take that." What made Air Force One special to him wasn't only the adrenaline, it was the craftsmanship. Director Wolfgang Peterson staged the film like a classic disaster thriller, mixing tension and empathy. Ford, who insists on doing as many of his own stunts as insurance will allow, performed much of the physical work himself, crawling through narrow fuselage tunnels, hanging from parachute cords, bruised and sweating. "I enjoy the physical side," he once said. "It makes the performance honest. If I'm tired, you'll see it."
I've always treated these questions with the utmost respect and somehow at the same time complete disdain. I will not answer that stupid question.
But beneath the spectacle, Ford saw something deeper, a story about duty and family. The president's devotion to his wife and daughter mirrors the ordinary man he's always played so well, the reluctant hero who just wants to protect the people he loves. That's the thread connecting Han Solo, Indiana Jones, Rick Deckard, and James Marshall. Men who discover that courage isn't about invincibility, but about endurance. Critics sometimes dismiss the film as pure popcorn, but Ford never minded. "Not everything needs to change the world," he once said. "Sometimes it's enough to make people cheer." And audiences did. Air Force One became a global hit, earning over $300 million and confirming that even in his 50s, Ford could still command the screen like few others. Watching him growl that famous line today feels almost symbolic. It's not just the president kicking a villain off a plane. It's Ford himself, defending old-school heroism in an age of digital excess. No capes, no multiverse. Just a man, his grit, and a single sentence that still makes theaters erupt. Would you rank Air Force One among your favorite action thrillers? And how does Ford's portrayal of a president compare to his adventure heroes? Number 5, To Kill a Mockingbird, 1962.
This is the National Association of Theater Owners. There's nothing to do with being a good actor.
No, none of this does.
Before Harrison Ford became a Hollywood icon, he was simply a young man who loved going to the movies. And one film, more than any other, shaped the way he thought about storytelling, morality, and empathy. That film was Robert Mulligan's 1962 classic To Kill a Mockingbird. Ford has often said that if he had to name one movie that truly moved him, it would be this one. If I had to pick just one film to which I had a very strong reaction, he told Far Out magazine, it would be To Kill a Mockingbird. It had all the elements of a great film and such a strong moral register. That's why I would say it's very nearly my favorite film. The movie stars Gregory Peck as Atticus Finch, a small-town lawyer in the Deep South who defends an innocent black man accused of a terrible crime. To Ford, the film's power comes from its simplicity. There are no explosions, no flashy effects, just people, courage, and conscience. It's about standing up for what's right, Ford once said, even when you know it might not change anything. That idea clearly stayed with him because it's woven into nearly every role he's ever played. The man doing the right thing because he must, not because it's easy. Watching To Kill a Mockingbird as a young man, Ford was struck by how Peck carried quiet conviction. The performance wasn't loud, but it was commanding. It showed that strength could come from gentleness, a lesson Ford would later bring to his own characters. Whether he's defending his family in Air Force One or guiding his son through danger in the Mosquito Coast, there's always that same Atticus Finch calm beneath the chaos.
Take him, Mr. Finch.
Oh, no, Mr. Tate. He can't shoot.
Don't waste time.
Ford has also said that the film's moral clarity affected how he viewed fame and responsibility. Movies reach people, he told interviewers years later. They can make you think about decency, about empathy. That's part of why I still do this. To Kill a Mockingbird reminded him that film can be both entertainment and education. That stories can hold up a mirror to society while still touching the heart. The courtroom sequence remains one of Ford's favorite scenes in all of cinema. Gregory Peck's speech, deliberate, unwavering, filled with pain and dignity, is, as Ford describes it, a masterclass in restraint. You can feel the same influence in Ford's own acting style. Minimalist, controlled, letting silence do the work. It's the art of doing less to say more. Decades after first seeing it, Ford still calls To Kill a Mockingbird one of the films that remind him why he became an actor. I don't chase the message, he once said. But when the message is already there and it's honest, that's the kind of story I want to tell. For Ford, Atticus Finch represents the ideal of decency. Not perfection, but integrity under pressure. And perhaps that's the real reason he treasures it, because it shows the best of humanity without pretending it's easy to achieve. Do you remember the first time you saw To Kill a Mockingbird? How did it make you feel? And do you think its message about empathy and justice still resonates today? Number 4. K-19. The Widowmaker, 2002.
You are.
Thank
You
you.
always have been.
I appreciate that. I learned a lot about you in this article. This is a great article.
Sorry.
No, there's some great.
By the early 2000s, Harrison Ford had already conquered space, archaeology, and the American frontier. But with K-19, The Widowmaker, he entered unfamiliar waters, literally and emotionally. The 2002 Cold War thriller cast him not as a swashbuckling hero, but as a Soviet submarine captain caught in one of the most harrowing true stories of the nuclear age. The film didn't break box office records, but Ford has repeatedly said he's proud of it. In a 2024 Far Out magazine interview, he called it a good movie with a strong story, one he stands by regardless of its reception. In K-19, Ford plays Captain Alexei Vostrikov, a hard-edged commander tasked with proving Soviet superiority at the height of the arms race. When the submarine's reactor malfunctions deep under the Arctic, the crew faces a deadly radiation leak and the possibility of global catastrophe. Ford's performance is intense yet deeply restrained. Behind the rigid uniform and clipped Russian accent, you can see the panic and guilt simmering just beneath the surface. He's a man forced to choose between his country, his crew, and his conscience, Ford explained. That's the kind of moral dilemma that interests me. Director Catherine Bigelow described Ford as fearless during production. He insisted on learning the routines of real submarine officers and spent days in the claustrophobic set, a full-scale replica of the K-19, to capture the suffocating tension of command. He wanted audiences to feel the pressure, not just witness it. The realism shows. Sweat drips, metal groans, and every decision feels like a death sentence. Ford said later that he admired the story's focus on leadership and accountability. The hardest part of command, he reflected, is knowing when to bend and when not to. What makes K-19 special to Ford is its moral complexity. There are no pure heroes or villains, only frightened men doing their best under impossible circumstances. That gray area appealed to him. People are complicated, he said. Even in war, especially in war, there are no clean choices. It's the same philosophy that defines many of his roles, a belief that true strength isn't about dominance, but endurance and empathy. Despite mixed reviews at the time, K-19. The Widowmaker has aged well, with critics later praising its authenticity and emotional gravity.
Fear is contagious. It was a very harrowing experience, and it bonded these men together in a really extraordinary.
Ford's portrayal of Vostrikov, stern, flawed, and ultimately self-sacrificing, stands as one of his most underrated performances. There's a quiet moment near the end when the captain finally admits to his crew that pride in politics nearly doomed them. His voice cracks, and for an instant, the Iron Commander becomes simply human. That vulnerability is pure Harrison Ford, the courage to not look heroic. Looking back, Ford has said he doesn't measure a film's worth by its box office. Each movie has its own destiny, he told Far Out. Some find their audience right away, some take years. For him, K-19 belongs to the latter. It's a film about duty, redemption, and the terrible cost of doing what's right when the world is watching. Have you ever seen K-19, The Widowmaker? Do you think audiences overlooked one of Ford's most powerful performances? And how do you feel about his portrayal of a Russian hero struggling with conscience? Number 3, 42, 2013. Approximately 570 words.
Did you stay overnight?
No.
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 But you're a friend of the president. You've entertained him at your house, have you?
I was delighted to have met the president on a number of occasions. I can't say I'm a friend.
By 2013, Harrison Ford had nothing left to prove. He had already played heroes, rogues, presidents, and even legends. But when the script for 42 arrived, the story of baseball icon Jackie Robinson, Ford saw a different kind of challenge. For once, he wouldn't be the star. He'd be the man standing beside one, quietly helping history happen. In 42, Ford plays Branch Rickey, the real-life Brooklyn Dodgers executive who broke Major League Baseball's color barrier by signing Robinson in 1947. Under heavy makeup, nearly unrecognizable, Ford disappears into the role. The gravelly voice, the stooped posture, the twinkle of righteous mischief in his eyes. Speaking to The Hollywood Reporter, Ford said he was proud to be part of a story that mattered beyond entertainment. This wasn't about me, he explained. It was about what was right.
Aim as a forfeit, so be it. That's 9-0.
For Ford, 42 wasn't just a period drama. It was a reminder of America's ongoing struggle between its ideals and its actions. Each film has its own destiny, he told Far Out magazine, and this one had a moral purpose. That purpose, he felt, made it one of the most important projects of his later career. Rickey wasn't a saint. He was a businessman who made a bold, risky decision because he believed decency could be profitable too. Ford found that contradiction fascinating. He's pragmatic, but deeply moral. He's doing the right thing, but he's also aware it's a good move for the team. That's what makes him real. On set, director Brian Helgeland said Ford was meticulous about honoring Rickey's legacy. He studied old interviews and practiced the executive's peculiar voice patterns for weeks. When he first delivered his scenes, the crew barely recognized him, and that's exactly what he wanted. He was completely transformed, Helgeland recalled. He didn't want to wink at the audience. He wanted you to forget it was Harrison Ford. There's one scene Ford says he'll never forget filming. Ricky's conversation with Jackie Robinson, played by Chadwick Boseman, where he tells him that the strength to change the world isn't found in fighting back, but in refusing to. "You're going to have to be strong enough not to fight," Ricky says. Ford later called it one of the most moving exchanges he'd ever performed. "That line," he said, "sums up the whole idea of moral courage." When 42 premiered, critics praised Boseman's breakout performance, but many were stunned by Ford's transformation. The New York Times called it a revelation, noting how he finds warmth inside stubbornness. For Ford, that was the greatest compliment. He wasn't chasing charisma, he was chasing truth. In the years since, Ford has spoken fondly of the film, especially after Boseman's untimely passing. "He was extraordinary," Ford said in 2020. "Working with him reminded me why stories like this matter. They make us remember who we should be." 42 remains a testament to Ford's belief that the most powerful heroes aren't always the ones with guns or whips. Sometimes they're the ones who simply make space for others to stand tall. When you watched 42, did Ford's portrayal of Branch Rickey surprise you? And do you think courage sometimes means holding back instead of striking back? Number 2. The Mosquito Coast, 1986.
And we were very lucky to get pretty good access to it,
Yeah.
and to be able to talk to a lot of the people.
When Harrison Ford calls the Mosquito Coast his best performance, he doesn't say it with arrogance. He says it with relief. The 1986 drama, directed by Peter Weir, wasn't a box office smash, nor was it universally loved at the time. But for Ford, it was the role that let him explore the farthest reaches of his talent. A descent into obsession, idealism, and madness. In the film, he plays Allie Fox, an inventor disgusted with modern America's greed and waste. Convinced he can build a better world, he uproots his family and takes them deep into the jungles of Central America. There, he constructs an ice-making machine and a fragile paradise that slowly turns into a nightmare. Ford told Far Out magazine that he loved the script precisely because it was risky. It was a chance to play someone deeply flawed, someone brilliant and broken. "It's the best work I've done." At the time, audiences wanted their Harrison Ford to be the dependable hero, the everyman who always finds a way out. The Mosquito Coast gave them the opposite, a man so convinced of his righteousness that he destroys everything he loves. It was Ford's most unflinching role, and one that divided critics for years, but he never regretted it. "I wanted to test the limits of sympathy," he said. "Could people still care about a man who's right in theory, but wrong in heart?" Director Peter Weir, who had previously guided Ford in Witness, described Allie Fox as an all-American hustler, that sawdust preacher who believes he can bend the world to his will. Ford threw himself into the part with ferocious energy. He lived in extreme heat on location, handled real machinery, and improvised moments of manic intensity. Weir recalled that Ford would sometimes stay in character long after the camera stopped, pacing and muttering about civilization sickness.
It was 1965, and they were doing stuff that they'd figured.
What Ford found so powerful about the story was its moral paradox. Allie Fox starts as a visionary and ends as a tyrant. "He's chasing perfection," Ford said, but he forgets to love the people he's doing it for. The film's tragic heart, the watching a genius self-destruct in the name of principle, resonated deeply with him. It was, he felt, a warning about pride, about mistaking intellect for wisdom. One of Ford's favorite scenes is when Allie triumphantly declares, "We eat when we're hungry, we drink when we're dry." A line that sounds noble until you realize it's the voice of delusion. For Ford, those contradictions are what make the movie enduring. "I don't like playing safe," he said. "I like playing human." And humans are messy. Over the years, the Mosquito Coast has undergone critical reappraisal. Many now consider it one of Ford's finest performances. Raw, daring, and emotionally exhausting. Even Ford himself admits he didn't expect people to like the film. He only hoped they'd feel it. And decades later, audiences finally do. For Ford, the Mosquito Coast represents everything he believes about acting. That truth often hides in discomfort, and that failure can be more revealing than success. It's not a story of triumph, it's a confession, told through sweat, heat, and heartbreak. Have you ever admired a film that challenged or even unsettled you? Do you think The Mosquito Coast proves that an actor's best work isn't always their most popular? Number 1. Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981.
Who are good, trust me, and those who are evil.
Every legend has an origin story, and for Harrison Ford, that story begins with a whip, a hat, and a grin. Raiders of the Lost Ark isn't just one of his favorite films, it's the one that made him eternal. Directed by Steven Spielberg and conceived by George Lucas, the 1981 adventure introduced the world to Indiana Jones, the cynical archaeologist who became a global icon. When Ford is asked to name his favorite line from his long career, he doesn't choose something profound or heroic. Instead, he smiles and quotes the weary indie quip, "It's not the years, honey, it's the mileage." In a 2025 interview with Far Out magazine, he admitted he still loves repeating it, even though he misremembers the wording slightly. "It's about experience," he said, laughing. That line says it all. Indy's been through hell, but he keeps going. That, Ford believes, is the essence of the character. Not indestructibility, but perseverance. When Raiders hit theaters, it reignited the magic of old pulp adventure serials, but with the grit and humanity of 1980s realism. Ford's performance was the key. He made Indiana Jones charismatic yet flawed, tough but vulnerable. A man who gets punched, bleeds, and still manages to smirk through the pain. He's not a superhero, Ford explained. He's just a guy who doesn't know when to quit. The making of the film was as demanding as it looks. Shooting in Tunisia, Ford battled heat, dehydration, and illness. During the famous sword fight scene in Cairo, he was suffering from dysentery. So instead of the planned choreographed battle, he simply pulled out his gun and shot the villain. Spielberg loved the improvisation, kept it in, and it became one of the most beloved moments in movie history. Ford later joked, "That's how Indiana Jones would handle it. Get the job done and go find a drink."
Ground falls out from underneath your feet.
Nice try, kid, but I think you just brought a knife.
But Raiders wasn't just fun, it was formative. Ford has said the film taught him the value of collaboration, trusting Spielberg's instinct for pacing, Lucas's sense of mythology, and his own intuition for physical acting. "It was the perfect storm," he reflected. "We didn't know we were making something timeless. We were just trying to tell a good story. Yet what emerged was cinematic alchemy, a balance of wit, wonder, and raw energy that no sequel, however good, ever quite surpassed." Ford often says that Indiana Jones represents the side of him that never grew up, the boy who still believes in mystery. "Indy's the part of me that loves adventure," he told interviewers, "but he's also the part that gets tired and bruised and keeps going anyway." That mixture of toughness and humanity became Ford's trademark. The line between actor and character blurred long ago. When fans cheer for Indiana Jones, they're really cheering for the man who brought him to life with such sincerity. More than 40 years later, Ford still lights up when talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark. "It was lightning in a bottle," he said. "Every time I see it, I remember why I fell in love with movies in the first place." What's your favorite Raiders moment? The boulder chase, the truck fight, or that sly smile after surviving the impossible? And what do you think makes Indiana Jones timeless? At 83 years old, Harrison Ford has lived a life most actors only dream of. But his list of favorite films shows that even legends look back with humility. From the pure adventure of Raiders of the Lost Ark to the moral courage of To Kill a Mockingbird, Ford's selections form a kind of cinematic autobiography. Each choice reflects a different layer of the man behind the myth, the dreamer, the craftsman, the skeptic, and above all, the believer in the power of story. He's a pilot who never stops flying, an artist who never stops learning. And what unites these 6 films, Air Force One, To Kill a Mockingbird, K-19, The Widowmaker, 42, The Mosquito Coast, and Raiders of the Lost Ark, is Ford's deep respect for characters who endure. Whether it's a president defending his plane, a father losing his paradise, or a lawyer standing for justice, each story celebrates resilience in the face of chaos. It's no coincidence that Ford once said, "I'm drawn to people who try, not always those who succeed." He's never been one for grand speeches or self-congratulation. When asked why he still works, even after decades of fame, he simply replied, "Because I love the process. I love showing up and trying to make it real." That quiet dedication is what keeps his name engraved in film history, not just as a movie star, but as a storyteller who always chose authenticity over comfort. So, as Ford himself might say, it's not the years, it's the mileage. And what a journey it's been! Which of Harrison Ford's 6 favorites resonates most with you? And which one will you be revisiting tonight? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories from the legends of cinema.